All right, and this is your last chance. There is audience participation, so if you want to run, this is the time to do it. Yeah, so bit of a change. So if you're wondering if you're in the right room, you still are, but this is a different presentation than I was going to deliver. If you want to talk about why projects fail and what to do about it and how to manage that, send me a note. We'll grab coffee. If you want like a more, I guess, blunt assessment, we'll grab a beer. But that is on offer still. But this is something I think that's a little more fun that I wanted to talk about and a little bit more personal to me and something that I kind of am passionate about at the moment. And it's really around this concept of how should biotech impact AI? And and I'll get into more of this in detail, but the kind of annoying thing to me was I started doing some just like quick searching. And if you look up like how will AI impact biotech, there's millions of results. A lot of it's really overblown and really dramatic and kind of seems a little fake to me. But when I searched for how should biotech impact AI, I only got one answer, and it was give us all your data and we'll tell you what to do. And I thought that's idiotic. And I'll tell you why I think it's idiotic here. But first, why am I here and why are you listening to this? Because I am a semi-retired guy. I spent 5 years leading the product management teams for research and tech dev at Moderna. I've got some of my team still here today. And then before that, I spent 17 years at Pfizer, starting out in a PK/PD lab. I had a really cool opportunity to just try to fix some things for scientists, and I never left, and ended up in the global role leading lab data stewardship and lab support at Pfizer. So this is actually kind of a weird audience for me. This feels a little bit like a graduation speech and a little bit like I triple booked myself because my product team stand-up is here. My lab data stewardship people from Pfizer are here and a bunch of vendors. So I feel like I just like really screwed up meeting scheduling today. But it's nice to see friendly faces. I'm also an empty nester. So my daughter's an engineer at Johnson & Johnson in California. That might be my next move. It's hard to kind of avoid the lure of California. I'm a guy in my 40s, so I'm not doing a good job of selling you on why you need to listen to me right now. And demographically, I think that qualifies me as a podcast. So I'll try to keep this at least entertaining, if not super informative. Uh-oh. There we go. All right, so what am I going to talk about, though? So first, this is my little side quest here. There's some amazing product managers, BAs, and customer success engineers from my former team that I'd love to find a new home for. So like I said, I'm semi-retired, but that would be a lot more comfortable knowing that everyone has landed somewhere great. So if you have open roles or if you're looking for those types of people, send me a note, grab me in the hallway afterwards. These are awesome people. They've worked with Ziffo in the past. They know how to do this type of work. Couldn't recommend them highly enough. So please do take me up on that. And secondly, I really wanted to kind of start this conversation about using the experiences that we all have from our pharma and biotech world working on data to see how we can de-risk AI, not just in the biotech space, but generally. I'll get the hang of this at some point. I don't know what I'm supposed to point at. All right, so how did I come up with this topic? So semi-retired, and I figured, what do you do when you have a lot of time on your hands? If this is 20 years ago, I would have written a novel, probably something, like, I don't know, American Psycho, but in the pharmaceutical industry. 10 years ago, probably would have written a blog, but it's 2026. So I sat down and built an app. And my theory behind this was really two things. I needed some structure in my life. So I handed my laptop off to Senthil a couple weeks ago, went home, looked at my Google Calendar, and the next thing on my calendar was take the trash out. And I realized I need to do something a little bit better than this with my life. So I needed structure, and I'd like to keep some houseplants alive. And I wanted to do something that wasn't pharma related. So I sat down. I know there's some actual software developers here, like Tian Hong. So don't laugh at this, but I tried to remember how did I used to write code when I used to do this sometimes. I grabbed a Python reference book and set up an IDE and went through all the stuff to get my laptop ready to go. And then I wrote like 3 prompts and didn't use any of that. And I built maybe. There we go. I built my plants identifier. So this was my first agentic application. So I built 3 agents, and the first one walks you through uploading a picture. The second one looks up the plant, identifies it, and captures a bunch of relevant information. The third one makes this site and also gives you a link to put something onto your Google Calendar so that you know when to water your plants. And again, this is the structure that I needed. So this is kind of how like pathetic life gets when you semi-retire. But this was really exciting. And I built all of this in about an hour. It was mostly just time refining all of the prompts for each of the agents. And it worked really well. I was really happy with it. The first time I ran it, it was great. This is actually the screenshot of the first time I ran it. It got the plant right. It captured most of the information I wanted. It set up the invite. I was really excited. I now have 2 calendar invites, one to water my plant and one to take out the trash. And it was, it was going great. So I thought, okay, there's definitely something more here. I've always been a little bit skeptical of AI. My team can definitely attest to that, I think. But I was excited about this. I was really impressed. And it was so easy and tell. And this is where this kind of ties back into the work that we've all been doing. I started getting, as soon as I tried my second try, I started getting data from fictional plant wikis. I don't want to get sued, but think Teenage Wizards. Very little of the data that was returned was in a usable state. I think the biggest challenge I ran into, and this is kind of an expert systems challenge, is that all of the guidelines were based on checking to see if the soil is moist. And so like the automation engineer part of my brain thought, okay, I'll set up an IoT network and get some hygrometers and actually measure this. And I was like, wait, no, that goes against the whole structure plan. I don't need to automate my problems away. I need to kind of deal with them. So backed up on that one. A lot of inconsistent results. So if I ran the application, I kept getting different results each time. And lastly, and you'll see why I have my reminder that this one is coming, plant-based erotic literature exists. That is 2 hours I will never get back. So there is a lot of strange stuff out there, and it makes it really hard to do this job effectively. So is anyone familiar with the dead internet theory? All right, does someone want to yell out a synopsis real quick?
There's no people on the internet.
Exactly, yeah. And so I started thinking about this in that context. And I'm going to give you a spoiler. I was going to try to be like sneaky and sneak this in at the end, but too many of you know me. So basically, as I was thinking about this, I realized that these are the problems that we've all dealt with every day. So data generators have very little incentive to produce quality data. It's so easy to just pump out volume over quality. And I know this is a challenge that everyone deals with constantly. I think the only time I ever got away from this was with help from Karen. And we had an awesome CSO at the time at Pfizer who came in and like made everyone at our site come in and sit in a session where she told them, I don't care how many experiments you do, if the data's not good, you're not gonna get your full review. And if your boss tells you to prioritize quantity over quality, come to me. And for a little bit, I think it got better, a little. Maybe, yeah. But there's no like CSO of the internet to solve this problem. The other thing is context is really challenging to establish. So like if you're just if you're having an AI tool look at the internet, it's hard to tell if you're looking at fictional data or real data. It's also hard to tell in any kind of context. Is this data that has been verified? Is it approved? Was this a test run before somebody actually generated real data? All of that context tends to get hidden in these situations. AI slop is everywhere. It's really difficult to establish a consensus. And lastly, the lineage of data is tough. So one thing I started finding was articles that my agent was pulling from were copies of other articles. And I couldn't ever track it all the way back to the source to understand what the raw data was and to what to work with. So if you're a little bit older, you probably remember the movie Multiplicity, where Michael Keaton makes copies of themselves and they get progressively dumber. That's kind of where I think we are right now. So what do we do? All of you have experience facilitating quality data capture. You all have things that you've done, tricks that you've learned, methods that you've used to try to make this problem less serious. And biotech data generators and consumers have the exact same dynamic. The people that are being asked to generate the data don't benefit when somebody uses it. The people that are using the data have zero control over how people capture it. It's a constant problem that we've all dealt with. And I think there's a real opportunity here to think about how we incentivize the curation of good data, both within your day jobs and just, hopefully at some point to kind of like save the world here. So my challenge for all of you is to stop asking how AI is going to change biotech and start talking about how we can change AI and make this actually a more impactful tool that we can use, that can be reliable, that actually can generate something that we trust. And now, instead of you guys asking me questions, because I don't work anymore, I'm going to ask you questions, and I will put people on the spot. So hopefully people want to jump in. If not, I will start calling people up. But just to kind of start the conversation, what are things that you've done or you've seen others do that really incentivize the capture of high-quality data? Go for it.
So this is in a previous slide, but one of the key things was bringing together the data producers and data consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Because telling people you need to do it, or telling that you're doing it for the benefit of some amorphous entity in the future does not change behaviors, but if you actually make people feel there's value in the data, it will spark, it doesn't change things overnight, it will spark that. It also gives people the chance to potentially see career development paths for themselves.
That's awesome. Has anybody actually tried that or had luck with that?
Only when I put them in the same team.
That's actually a really interesting way to look at it, I think, is if they kind of report up to the same leadership, it's a lot easier to get that messaging through. Any other thoughts before I jump to more? Yeah, Marcus, go for it.
Yeah, so in my field, in CMC, definitely prior knowledge is the thing. Scientists, we know, what should be, the parameters of control and trial clearance and stuff like that. And so I was actually part of the team. Like, okay, let's go have some packages together, maybe we get them ready for filings.
Mm-hmm.
And the data quality was bad. It was still in Excel, and I'm like, I know what the answer should be,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't actually just fully justify it right here. So I went ahead and when I was in a larger meeting and I just showed where we were with it. And yeah, I could probably manually curate, and I did some parts of it. But that was the point of we need to put in some higher quality data, we need to put in standards, and I put it on leadership and on senior management. I know when I was at Pfizer with you, it was a lot stronger top down.
Oh, yeah.
Organization is a little bit more larger and everything now, so it's a little bit hard to do that. But yeah, to show me I showed the value, people agreed to value.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we're all kind of together on this journey to improve the data quality.
That's awesome. Yeah. What was your thought?
Yeah, so again, past life, we had put in place a system that would really help to capture the appropriate metadata and everything. And so what we did was, similarly, we leveraged leadership where we had messaging go out. We have this amount of, this percent of this group that is following this, and then the people that dies percent that doesn't is part of the group. But we had
Yeah.
So, but it was a way to show leadership support of, and then continue to shout out.
Okay. I did the opposite once too, and I think it got me in trouble because I called them shame reports. So instead of rewarding, we tried to call out the bad behavior, which doesn't work, I'll tell you that, yeah. Yes.
It's a really good question, really. I think you probably need to start with why,
Mm-hmm.
and also how you measure, right? What I mean is you probably need to have an index of the quality index.
Yeah.
Is that, and then how you're going to do that, you will have to start from the end. For example, if it's for submission, right, then what type of data you need to capture in what type of format, consider as a high quality data, so that it will be ready for you to start the first draft, right, accelerated.
Yeah.
I think that's where you should start, and then share with everyone why you need to do that, and then make everyone, their job
Yeah.
capture, how can you do it easy. The key part is if you give them some visibility, like you want them to do the input, but you do give them the output, right? At
Yeah.
the same time, I think the incentive will be naturally there.
Have you ever read the book Path of Least Resistance?
Hmm.
Like I enjoy using Goblik, but yeah, sometimes just making it easier for scientists to get there, and I think Gen AI is minus the slop, but
Yeah.
will help us a little bit there in that aspect.
Yeah, especially if you can then adapt to changes more rapidly so that stuff isn't constantly broken and frustrating people.
It kind of reminds me of what we've done in the past is an XKCD of like someone on the internet is wrong, so I have to fix it.
Yeah.
A couple of times where I kind of knew the graph wasn't exactly accurate.
Yeah.
And then I get prep reading, presented the graph, and they scientists like, well, that's definitely not what happened. It's like, hold the data yesterday, guys. If you guys didn't, this is what you guys put in there, it's wrong. Cool. And then very quickly the data could fix itself very, very quickly. Show what they had and kind of it's been effective for me a couple of times.
No, that's an awesome idea. I really like that, actually. Yeah, to kind of pressure test it a little bit.
Scientists want to fix things, and they see something wrong, they'll fix it.
I like that one. That kind of is a little better than my shame reports. Yeah. All right, any other thoughts, or I'll move to my next question. All right. So have you actually tried using AI tools to capture data? I can see a lot of really strong use cases for using AI once you have a data set, but has anyone had any luck using AI to enable the capture of data? Yeah.
So we have quite a few manufacturing sites that are still on paper batch records and are handwritten text,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like certificate of analyses
Yeah.
from outside companies. So I'm pretty impressed with the tool that we were able to build, and it's actually different AI models for different parts of the problem. So it's agentic to get to digitizing the data out of those PDFs, both handwritten text as
Mhm.
well as like a printed text.
That's cool. And how much, I'm just curious on this one. Once you built that, how often do you have to maintain it?
We are doing a lot of active development, but more to bring in more types of data that we're trying to do, and
Okay.
also get our, we have, because it's in a GMP space, we have a person doing 100% verification at the moment, so we can use that data for GMP purposes.
Okay.
So we also want to make sure that there's less times that someone has to go in and correct the AI results.
That's great. Yeah, I know one challenge that we had when I was at Moderna that I'm assuming you still have Synthel. Synthel built this really cool AI tool for, like, we put all of our help guides into it and let people ask questions. And it worked until we stopped looking at it for a day, and then it started making stuff up and coming up with like So I'm kind of interested in like where this, how the life cycle of agents will go. I think that's a really interesting topic, and how people can maintain them. Anybody else? Has anybody used AI to actually capture data?
I think it's more on convert data than capture
Okay.
data, right? I think it's a lot of it, and to go back to some conversation we had with like Bicycle Forest, for example, like so much equipment still just generates fat files.
Mhm.
So it's how we get those, it's kind of, if we use it, again, non-DMV ways, like convert those fat files into something more digital that we can
Okay.
go forward with. Interestingly, sometimes like raw network for data is in German, so AI would be very, very helpful to convert German data.
Interesting.
I have the whole, like, literally the whole problem was this, like, couldn't do it without AI, wouldn't be able to solve it either. Read it.
I just imagine German data being more structured to begin with, but yeah. But no, that's really interesting. And did you have challenges with people coming up constantly with new formats of Excel sheets, or were they at least coming in the same every time?
Coming in the same thing.
Okay.
Usually stuff that was kind of like you bought this machine off a German company, and like, this is the report. It is
Yeah.
what it is. And even like, you're trying to get like, okay, there's 15 of these, you want to see batch to batch what happened.
Okay.
How do you layer on top of each other?
Okay. Because yeah, that was another challenge that we had faced with Connect, and really trying to make sure that everyone was generating data the same way, because the tool can't extract in any programmatic way if it's constantly coming in structured differently. Cool. Any other thoughts? I have one more question. Go for it.
Computer vision,
Yeah.
this
Yeah, and I think that ties into what you were talking about with, you get a lot of reports from CROs, and either somebody has to transcribe them manually, or being able to extract that data is a really cool concept, I think. Cool. All right, last question. How has this impacted you guys, either personally or at work? Are you dealing with this a lot? Is this a challenge, the data quality, or is everyone still at the stage where you're still building things and the data quality hasn't really held you back on AI efforts? Okay.
The data quality. You destroy that AI, you get garbage back. It's not actually
Yeah.
there's no metadata.
Yeah. Well, all right. So I'm walking away after this and going on vacation for a while, but my challenge to all of you is to spend some time and fix this so that when I'm done with my vacation, a lot of these problems are resolved and there's better ways to navigate this. That's all I had. So thanks for the conversation. This was really fun.